On behalf of CJ Kirkpatrick, the Commander of Operations Group for the Joint Multinational Readiness Center, welcome to this episode of Forging the Sword. I'm Raptor 07, the Senior Engineer Trainer, Lieutenant Colonel Rolland Johnson. I'm joined with Colonel Tim Hudson, the 102nd Commandant of the Engineer Regiment. Sir, over your career, you've seen a lot of changes to the Engineer Regiment from your time as Lieutenant post-Brigade Command. You know, we've had a lot of changes to the environment. We've been able to understand the environment, adapt, and integrate these new changes. So over your career, can you share some of your experiences about how the role of an engineer leader has changed in support of brigade operations?
Hey, Ron, great question, and just appreciate the time this afternoon to talk, and it's an honor to be chatting with you as well, going way back to when you were second lieutenant. Appreciate this time to be with this warfighter, Lieutenant Colonel Johnson. So, hey, Ron, looking back, thankfully I appreciate the opportunity as a young lieutenant to fight very similarly to Lisco back when I was a lieutenant, and doing the combined arms maneuver, and had the opportunity to go to the LTC. And so 25 years ago almost now, and my platoon and our company had an organic relationship with a maneuver battalion, and we were attached to an armored battalion. That relationship was really important, and some of the things that we learned there are coming back and are very similar to what our captains need to know now. Let me describe a couple of those things. So first of all, it was important that I knew their TTPs, their SOP. I needed to have their SOP and share my thoughts and maybe how we did our SOP as well for marking lanes and our terrain shaping and obstacles. We need to make sure we had that crosstalk. It needed to be well before we were going to do any type of operation together. This was while we were still in garrison. I needed to go link up with my counterparts, the platoon leaders, the XOs, the company commanders in that battalion, and then the company commander. That was me as a platoon, but my company commander was doing the same engagements with their 3, their XO, and their battalion commander, and their staff officers as well, to make sure we all have a common understanding of how we're going to maneuver. We need to know their SOPs as well, and how their tank teams were going to operate, so that we could be well integrated in that maneuver. So I think the first fundamental for a captain is early and often integration. Learn their language, learn how they speak, build that rapport and build that trust. One thing I tell the captains upstairs when I get the opportunity to talk to them as they're here at the Captain's Career Course is when you're building that partnership and that relationship with your combined arms team, if they ask you to do a task that you feel like is below what an engineer should be asked to do, hey, can you guard the gate right now for the support area? Like, man, that's not really what I came here to do. I got mines, I got Miklick, I got things I can do for you. Mm-hmm. Don't give an excuse why you can't do it. Go and do it really well. Mm-hmm. Be part of that team. Right? If they ask you to do a police call, if they ask you to do something you feel like, man, I'm the engineer. Build that trust. Be part of the team. Do some of the tasks that that they just need taken care of, that aren't necessarily engineer specific. You're just building that trust. You're building that understanding, and then be a known face. Somebody that's known as a captain. As you walk into their talk, they should know who you are. Just had the opportunity. I was down at Fort Hood and had the opportunity to watch 20th Engineer Battalion integrate with 11 Cav, and the common theme, and they've already got a partnership. The common theme was, hey, this captain's here all the time in our battalion headquarters, in our task force headquarters here. And so that early and often integration, understanding the language, understanding SOPs, rehearsing with them is really important. As you and I know, we kind of transitioned and tried a couple other structures that were important based on how the world changed. We had an Echo company and a combined arms battalion, which was a lot of fun. Not a lot of capability in that company, but that's how we were fighting in the coin environment in Iraq and Afghanistan. We went to an STB, and there were some challenges there for combined arms integration in that STB, quite frankly. And there was a little bit of pull for who has those engineered companies and that capability within their formations. And now we've come back to kind of how I started in the Army. But I think the theme is the same. You have to know your business. You have to know your business. You have to understand maneuvers business as well, and beyond that, the fires business, the sustainment business, and then building that rapport and that trust with your maneuver counterparts, and you're going to be successful.
Okay, appreciate that, sir. What role do you see the engineer captains playing differently in the division-centric Army compared to a brigade combat team-focused operation?
So I think some part of what I described, I think the highest rank I described a captain engaging with was probably the major, some of their counterparts, captains, and probably the battalion commander on occasion. They need to be prepared to talk to folks with higher rank and higher influence as well. Just based on that environment, they need to be ready to talk to the BCT commander and explain the capabilities of what they bring to a BCT. And they also need to understand division level enablers and how those complement breaching operations or engagement area development, and the tools that they can bring that are division level enabled. I think of Atom RAM, probably just RAM and Gator and other tools, and the other protection tools as well that are all part of operating at the division-centric fight. So,
all right.
So I think two things. One is be prepared to engage with higher level commanders and staff officers, and then understand the additional enablers and capabilities that the division has and how to incorporate those as well into their operations.
Yes, sir. And what are your thoughts about, it's not just the company commanders engaging with brigade commander or within the division environment, but they also need to be able to train their lieutenants, brand new to the Army, still learning their profession, but they could be that senior engineer in that maneuver battalion engaging with that 05 commander too.
Yeah, hey, Ron, as we talked about earlier today, you're not going to be good as explaining your capabilities and what you bring and how long it's going to take you unless you have a lot of reps and sets. You're not a good problem solver unless you've done something multiple times and have a lot of experience. So I think as a company commander, you can teach your lieutenants engineer capabilities and doctrine and things. That's good. You need to. But you really need to get them in the field and get a lot of reps and sets, repetition over and over again, do the breach over and over again, put in obstacles over and over again, and then they'll understand this is what my platoon can do, right? This is based on this terrain, based on this environment. I know what my platoon, because we've done it so many times that I know their capabilities. So I think it's not just memorizing. Here's what the book says an engineer can do. It's actually getting out there in the field, getting reps and sets, so they can communicate that effectively to their maneuver counterparts.
Yes, sir. And probably to build the confidence with those relationships too, just like those company commanders need to do.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, sir.
But the best way to know your business is to get out in the field and do it again and again.
Absolutely. How's the engineer school adapting the captain level education and training to prepare officers for this LSCO environment?
Yeah, good question. So the environment's changing really quickly, and we're getting updates from around the world on a weekly, sometimes daily basis right now, and war continues to change and evolve. We're learning new things. So just a couple things. I really appreciate we're getting feedback from the CTCs. We're getting feedback from some other organizations that are embedded with some of our partners and around the world, and that immediately goes into the classroom. So our captains are quickly learning best practices and TTPs from around the world on a regular basis. Things that used to take a while to change, that's not acceptable anymore. We're updating our curriculum based on the operating environment that continues to change on a regular basis. That's probably good. Okay. Let me add this though. The doctrine, the fundamentals remain the same, right? And we're going to need agile, adaptive thinkers with a good foundation to solve problems and adjust off of a known point in order to be creative and solve problems. And I've challenged our captains to think a little bit outside the box, to challenge maybe some of the paradigms that they've held to be absolutely true. In the future, they may be a little bit different, or maybe need to think a little bit differently. So I even told them SOSRA and frankly, a couple of them gasped. Like, sure, you can't challenge social. I said, those fundamentals are still the same, but maybe some of those, the way they're implemented are a little bit different. Or maybe some of the letters are repeated multiple times based on the new environment. So I said, you just need to start thinking differently, take that doctrine and build off of it and be creative in solving complex problems you're going to face.
And I mean, it's exciting to see, when you consider .mil PF, the schoolhouse changing on the doctrinal part of that.
Yeah.
It changes the organization, and then ultimately we can see the application of it when those units come down and do their rotation at JMRC.
Great.
Good. What engineer capabilities are being prioritized, and how should engineer captains think about managing risks and any sort of trade-offs in their operations within the new R structure?
Yeah, okay, that's good. So our priorities are nested with the chief of engineers. And he has a 3+1 because he wanted 3, but he couldn't figure out how to squeeze all of his priorities into 3, so he did 3+1. And the very first one is engineer equipment readiness. And that's a holistic approach. This is a .mil PF approach. We're not doing well. We can both agree with that, Rolland. Our low density engineer equipment, the operational readiness rates of that equipment is not acceptable. And that's why the chief made that his #1 priority. And it's good equipment. We're going to go to war with it. It's what we have right now. And we've got to be able to maintain it and operate it in acceptable operational readiness. So we're only providing half the capability of Maneuver Commander right now because half our jabs work. We can only cross half the gaps we used to cross, quite frankly. Or hey, we can't breach as much because our ABVs don't work. So that #1 priority has got to be making sure your equipment and your people are ready to go and operational. The second priority is, and this is again nested with General Graham, our chief, is autonomous breaching. So he says, why are we still putting soldiers in the breach? This is 2025. It's completely unacceptable to have soldiers in the breach. So we're working really hard right now. There's some great initiatives across the Engineer Regiment. We've got Sand Hills going on for the 20th Engineer Brigade, and the Mars, which is machine-assisted rugged sapper, down at Fort Hood and 36. And both of those initiatives, both of them done a breach at this point without any soldiers in the breach, which is really exciting. Now we just need to bring that all together and get them across the Army and acquire the right systems to do those breaches. So engineer equipment readiness, it's got to be our #1 priority. We're going to war with what we have, autonomous breach, and then terrain shaping, explosive terrain shaping. We don't provide a lot of capability to our maneuver counterparts to shape the terrain, to give us the 3-to-1 advantage in the defense. We're using, first of all, our landmine inventory is not what it used to be, and our training needs to catch up. Our doctrine probably needs to catch up some too. What are we going to do to shape the terrain to achieve effects in support of our engagement area development for our maneuver commanders? So we're working hard right now. We have an opportunity, I believe, to improve our ability to provide capability to our maneuver commander counterparts in the defense. And then General Graham's +1 is just engineer effects during our training and exercises. So I appreciate what you're doing at the JMRC and the other CTC commanders are doing. Frankly, we need to do it at home station, and our company commanders, when they work with their maneuver counterparts and they're going to do some exercise at home station, they need to create true enemy engineer obstacles. Right? It can't be just a simple 100-meter deep mine wire obstacle. That's not what we're going to see on the battlefield. They're going to be complex obstacles. We need to replicate that so everyone has an appreciation for what's going to be required to truly breach through that obstacle. You asked what risk do we need to we're coming to commanders to take risk. They're going to need to. There's so much noise and other requirements that are pressing on a company commander, and I would argue they need to take risk at their computers. Just step away from it. All right, get out of. We didn't pay you. We're not wearing the captain rank to be behind a computer, make slides and answer emails, make Excel sheets. That's when you accept some risk. If somebody needs you that bad, they'll give you a call on your cell phone. Okay, take risk on all the administrative stuff. Get out in the motor pool, get out in the field, be at the range, be training with their soldiers, make sure things are being done to excellence, get the reps in, and that's where I would tell them to take risks.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Be forward, coordinating that defense,
Yes.
making sure everything remains
Yeah,
synchronized.
so I think my example was in garrison,
Yeah.
right? Because that office can pull you in.
Mm-hmm.
Does my slide look good for the upcoming command and staff? Who cares?
Mhm.
You got an XO for that, right? It might not be perfect, and that's okay. But I think I love that you brought it into the operational environment. Don't get stuck in your company CP or your tie. You got to be out there in the front, engaged with your maneuver counterparts, engaged with your subordinate leaders, making sure things are being done out
Sure.
front. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what advice would you give to captains on how to best integrate engineer effects, mobility, counter-mobility, survivability, general engineering into their operations, be it division level or brigade level execution?
That's good. A lot of the themes we've already talked about
Mhm.
with rehearsals and integration with maneuver counterparts, making sure they understand the maneuver commander's intent is really important. Doing all the steps of engagement area development, not just focused on the obstacle, focus all the way through to be integrated with the entire staff, understand the commander's intent, working through that, and then just the relationship also with the brigade engineer and the division engineer. If you're a commander, I know you mentioned captains, but let's just assume the role as commander. If you're the commander, you have this responsibility back to your battalion commander and the brigade commander. However, you need to be forward as well. And so understanding, clearly defining roles, all the requirements of a task force engineer or brigade engineer, what's the company commander going to assume role, what task is the company commander going to execute, and what tasks is that staff officer going to execute. And clearly defining that so you can achieve the greatest effect on doing redundant effort or missing something as well that needs to be captured. Already talked about making sure you understand the commander's intent, the maneuver commander's intent. And then here's the other part too. I think this might sound a little bit different, but letting go of some control at times. We like to feel like, hey, I'm the company commander. I need my platoon leaders near me, and you need to train them up well enough that you can launch them, and just let them go and know that they're going to be able to execute their mission. And so I suffered from that, quite frankly. My company commander felt like my engineer company commander felt like he needed to keep me at his, with his company longer, and so I missed opportunity to be already embedded with the maneuver task force earlier, the company team earlier. And so I'd show up, and already midway through rehearsals, that's unacceptable. And it was, my company commander could have sent me a lot earlier and just trusted, I'm ready to go, we can do this. And then he can lead by exception. And we all know what that is, and we talked a little bit about the human terrain, which is my weakest platoon leader. That's probably where I need to go. I need to go be with that platoon leader, or maybe the most challenging portion of whether it's with terrain shaping or the breaching. That's where I need to place myself so I can coach along that platoon. So knowing where to be on the battlefield, and then also training your subordinate leaders well enough that they're ready to go and integrate as necessary.
Sure. And then I think tying it together a little bit, it's having built those relationships with the maneuver commanders, and then understanding. You mentioned engagement area development. It isn't just step 4 with the obstacles. Things are happening simultaneously to be successful, and that is based on that commander's intent, as well as with SOSRA. A lot of those tenets are being executed simultaneously,
Right.
And understanding through rehearsals, through those relationships of where you need to be to make sure that the battalion or brigade is successful.
Yeah, hey, Ron, thanks for mentioning rehearsals, because you're just not going to be successful without it.
Mhm.
If you do nothing else, I mean, frankly, you can shortcut pitching your operations order. I know that sounds like heresy, probably. You can shortcut your operations order. Just cut a couple paragraphs out, make it really short,
Sure.
and just go do good rehearsals, and you're probably going to be, you have a better chance of being successful. And the more people you have involved, and the more you replicate the actual environment. If you just do, if you have a sand table as I have time for, okay, but if you can actually walk around and see and visualize in space and time, that's the most valuable thing you're going to do to be successful. I'm sure you're seeing the same thing on rotations out there.
Absolutely. They absolutely make or break the execution. And, commanders can assume risk on where they need to be based on knowing that your subordinates know what they need to do based on the rehearsal.
That's right. That's great.
Right? What's the most important mindset shift engineer captains need to make to remain effective as the Army transitions?
That's good. I think you need to have an open mind. We've always needed creative problem solvers for engineers. And I think that's where we need to be. You need to know doctrine. You need to know tactics. You need to be a master at your skill. You need to know where to have an open mind, a creative mind, and then where to take some risk as well, quite frankly. And we can't be overly risk averse, or we're not going to be successful. The enemy's thinking, and they're going to be counterplay. It's going to be adaptive. We've just got to be one step ahead. We've got to think one step ahead and be creative thinkers, and then take some risk, take some prudent risk. I think that's where we need to go.
Yes, sir. And I think about you as you laid out the timeline throughout your career at the beginning of this interview. A mindset shift for these changes is really the status quo for us, because you've been going through a organizational change every 5 years already, but your core mission as an engineer hasn't changed.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. Hey, let me add a little bit to the risk and the idea of having an adaptive, problem-solving mindset, creative mindset. I think it requires some boldness in there too. You gotta be able to, there's some risk here. I'm gonna have the courage and the boldness to move out. This is the right thing to do. I think this gives us an advantage, but not recklessly, right? Still to use some prudent controls in place to still protect your team and make sure you have some controls in place. So some risk, but still looking ways to mitigate that risk and move out boldly as well. So I know we had opportunities to do that when we served earlier in our careers, to take some risk, to move out boldly, and then still put controls in place to make sure we were successful.
Yes, sir. And so one final question here: what lessons or observations are emerging about engineer operations, and how can CTCs or even engineer captains who are in command, how can they best assist the Engineer Regiment, the schoolhouse in helping the future leaders prepare?
Yeah, good. So first of all, we have a requirement here at the schoolhouse to integrate all the domains of .mil-PF, and I'll just share. We don't have it right. It's not right now. There's areas across all those domains we need to make improvements. And it's hard to figure out from here in these hallways sometimes. So we need the feedback from across the Engineer Regiment. If you're wearing a castle, we need feedback from you. If you're executing your operations, you go to a CTC and you realize, wow, this isn't quite right. And it could be across any of those domains. We need that feedback. And quite frankly, some people have already reached out back here. They've been reaching out, and we appreciate that feedback. So some things we're trying to improve right now. We probably don't have the right set of maintainers in our CECs, right? We don't have enough track maintainers. We don't have enough the right grade of those maintainers as well. And so we're looking to fix that right now. We don't have for our EQTs. They haven't been modernized yet and updated completely for the CECs. So it's good feedback that we're receiving, that we need to make those updates as well. So I think part of it is this is a two-way. You come here to the CAPS career course or EBOLIC, you learn initially institutional knowledge, and you go out there, as you get in the field, that's where we need to learn back here at the institution on adjustments we need to make across .mil-PF. What else from your question?
All right, I think there's a false idea, false mindset of, I'm just a captain, I'm just a company commander. I can't affect change, way at the engineer regimental level. I can write an article, for the Engineer Blast, great resource. But what's your assurance to that company commander that they really can make the change based off of what they're doing that's successful in this fast-changing environment that we're operating?
Yeah, that's good. So certainly they can talk to the battalion commander. They can send me a note directly. That's fine too. They'll hear back from me. I'll write them back. There's most of these battalion commanders that are writing back to me, but frankly, those battalion commanders, they're learning that from their captains. So the reason we're fixing the EQTs, the reason we're fixing the STRACs, It's because some captain realized, like, what am I trying to, he was a good training management and realized he didn't have the right class 5 for what he needed to be able to execute during his first training plans. And so that feedback made it to the battalion XO, to the battalion commander. The battalion commander reached out to us, and we can fix that. We're working on it. Hopefully by 27, it might be 28, that we can get that right size for these formations. So our regiment is, it's the best regiment, and we're very closely knit. It's a welcome to see that castle flying anywhere around the world you go. Like, oh, here we are. This is my engineer brothers and sisters, and we're small enough. We're creative problem solvers. It's part of our DNA. It's what we do. Is we're problem solvers. But we need the feedback from every level. Right? And frankly, there's much better ideas at the 03 level right now than there is the 06 level. You get a bunch of criminals together, we're not going to solve anything. Quite frankly, you might solve some budget and policy things, but the people that are really going to give us the right feedback are those captains. I look forward to getting some of that feedback.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So every rotation, from the rear area all the way to the engineer recon forward, engineers are littered throughout the battlefield, and we're constantly impressed as a Raptor team, as JMRC. The maneuver, our critter teams give us that feedback at the quality of officer, quality of leader, quality of unit that the engineers bring to the battlefield. So we really appreciate everything you're doing here to educate the captains and the lieutenants. Really appreciate your time for this podcast, for Forging the Sword, and thank you for sitting here for us.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. It's an honor to serve the regiment. It's an honor to be an engineer. Appreciate the time this afternoon as well. Thank you.
Thanks.